My life, especially my working life, would be so much easier if I sounded like the late, great James Coburn. Or so I believe. As a third-party provider, working remotely for whoever I happen to be working for, I spend a fair share of my time on the phone, discussing the exciting things my client and I are planning to do, and spending the rest of my time imagining how awesome it would have been to carry my end of the conversation in the deep, gravelly voice of James Coburn, sounding mildly belligerent yet somehow warm, like everyone's avuncular friend and the man who gets things done. People would order more, pay more for what they ordered, and never question my delivery dates or word choices if I was channeling James Coburn on the phone. Or would they really? Of course, I'm not even going to dignify that with an answer, because the question is missing the point every bit as much as the teenage girl who wonders, should she have cosmetic surgery done? However, the predicament prompting either question is very real, and there is a name for it: insecurity. While the reason for the teenager's insecurity are as obvious as her prospects of getting over it, the case of the insecure freelance translator is more complex. This is not to suggest that every freelancer is insecure, but many people who spend vast amounts of time by themselves tend to become introverts, or vice versa, which in turn makes them prone to be less sure of themselves when out in public than gregarious people are. To me personally, feeling unsure of yourself seems a perfectly plausible response to a world where few things are certain, and so I won't attempt to question the fact or the causes of someone's insecurity. The only question I will address here is whether there are any easy ways to cope with it in a manner that is reassuring for the client. Being alone at your desk or at home, you can be anything you like, a manic depressive or bozo the clown, but you may want to keep a lid on it because it is nobody else's business, least of all your clients'. On the contrary, it is of the essence to present an intact front to the client. You should never, ever position your working self as something other than a beacon of integrity. In the same sense that a company is more than the collective personality of its workforce, you should pass yourself off not as a person, but as a one-person brand. I like to think of this face you present to your client base as an avatar, like in a video game, composite yet not unreal, superhuman yet a recognizable individual. Let me illustrate the avatar concept with a story. When we were children, my little sister used to be shy to the point of muteness in the presence of grown-ups, except in one situation, in my uncle's car on the motorway at night. My uncle drove fast, at least compared to our dad's glacial pace, and we loved getting to ride in his car, but none more so than my little sister. In Winnie the Pooh's world, she would have been Piglet, but night rides on the motorway turned her into Tigger. When he took us back home from our cousins in the evening, she would pipe up in the back seat where the grown-ups in front could not see her, and comment on everything on or off the road vociferously, brashly, glibly, only to fall silent once the dome light came on in the driveway. My uncle, turning in his seat to compliment her on the sassy run-on commentary, would only find us boys in the back seat and a one voiceless little waif frozen in the headlights of adult discourse. I have taught myself to match her act on the phone and in email correspondence. Over the years, I learnt that personal encounters with my clients should be avoided. Such meetings tend to be on the executive level, for example, with heads of department or authorized signatories in attendance, because the only reason for a freelance translator to meet a client-side representative in person is to negotiate and sign a contract. Everything else is easier and more efficiently done over the phone and via email or snail mail correspondence. I shudder when thinking back to some of these meetings in my early years. There I would be, in my one good jacket, standing less than 6 foot tall, cowed by the glitzy corner office of an alpha male, fumbling my words, presenting an awkward business case, consenting to ridiculous conditions, and still leaving with a distinct sensation that my interlocutors were the ones who felt let down. Even the secretary seemed to watch me exit after such a lackluster performance with a mildly scandalized frown, as if she would now charge me for the coffee she had enthusiastically served, compliments of the house, upon my arrival. On the phone or in writing, however, this stick figure me turns into the urban professional who, in addition to being at the top of his game, has a well-rounded personality and many interests, family and friends, sports and hobbies, a flurry of likable vices, and, naturally, a fine sense of humor. This is the backseat act you want to hone. Hint at resources and capacities that will make up for the lack of manpower in a jiffy, even if it's really you and your tools working double shifts. Admit that you love being a super lark who gets up at the crack of dawn. Confess to your creative side that you love writing even when not writing for your clients. While many of these traits are not necessarily contrived, it might, in the eyes of some people, seem phony or downright dishonest to instrumentalize them. But if you stop short of bragging, this subtle display of confidence gives your clients the sort of reassurance they need before they entrust their business to you. Of course, you should not make things up or inflate them. Just juggle them a bit for effect. Present yourself to advantage, by no means to deceive the client, but precisely to diffuse a latent, if persistent, fear on the client side that a freelancer is self-employed only because he found no other employment and that he might fail them in the same way he must, no doubt, have failed previous employers. In the eyes of the permanently employed, it is a thin line that separates the lone wolf entrepreneur from the ne'er-do-well misfit, and you should put everything you have into a glossy facade of professional conduct to refute that suspicion. What do you know about your client's integrity? There is a good chance that the overachiever has bungled several marriages and cries himself to sleep at night in front of the TV. But in the daytime, he will waltz with you if, and only if, you know your well-rehearsed steps and know your place. If you feel this sounds a lot like old-school discipline, let me tell you that playing by the rules has worked a treat for me as long as I am the one making those rules. One of the most effective regiments is to pretend that you keep regular business hours on weekdays. During my own business hours, I habitually answer the phone on the second ring and reply to emails within minutes. For the same reason, I watch the phone ring off the hook on weekends, not touching it even if I'm in the office, lest my clients think I'm a workaholic with no social life. Never tell a client that you worked the entire weekend to get an assignment done, but just say it was a challenge you were happy to meet. What good would it do you long term if you made the client feel bad about having ruined your weekend? None at all. He or she would hold it against you and think you are poorly organized. Here is another one of my silly little rules. Always let your clients know how good it is to hear from them and that you will see what you can do, even if you are completely booked out. There is always a way to rearrange your schedule, granting discounts for extended deadlines and charging extra for rush jobs. And even if you have to pull out of a job later, doing so will be more convincing after you displayed initial optimism. What I am about to say is not meant flippant or exploitative in any way, but is my unambiguous advice. Call them by name on the phone. Remember the names of their children and the holidays they told you about. Say something nice about the town they are calling from. Take an interest. Show that you care. If someone returns from maternity leave, ask her how the baby is doing and she herself. After a period of having actively cultivated this phone etiquette, it will become self-sustaining because you will realize you enjoy interacting with live beings and that you take pleasure in the small talk, the human touch. You really will care. Inversely, the people at the other end will remember you fondly and take you with them when they move on, which is something I carefully strive for as my most effective networking approach. After about a minute of socializing, ask them in mid-sentence in a briskly friendly business voice what you can do for them today. A final example. Never share concerns over finances or taxes, and never cast doubt on your performance or outlook. Like they say in the movies, anything you say can and will be used against you, even and especially your worries. Your clients owe you nothing but cold cash, and they will feel so much better about giving it to you if you do not make them uncomfortable, but make them feel good about working with you. That is, if you present an avatar they understand and like. And hey, it does not have to be James Coburn.